Hello students, welcome to your English class. So today let's go ahead with chapter 2. The LI that we'll be looking at is interpreting a text within its historical, social, cultural and political contexts. Context is basically the time in which the text was based and the time in which it was written. So first let's look at the homework that we were supposed to do. First, we are supposed to watch the different links provided in the description box to yesterday's class and learn more about apartheid and Nelson Mandela. So I hope you've done this homework. If you've not, then please do it before we begin our class. The second was read page 16 and do the activity on page 17 in first flight, chapter 2 again, chapter 2 Nelson Mandela. So these two things needed to be done. If you've not done it, please go ahead and do that first and then move ahead with this class because it's really important for you to get that context. Okay. So first let's look at the meaning of context. It is the circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea. So let's take an example. Your friend fights with you over a small thing. How do you feel? Now, later on, a classmate tells you that this friend's parent is very sick and your friend is stressed out about it. Does your feeling about the fight change? If you had known this before the fight, would you have acted differently? I'm sure that all of us would have. And that's the importance of context. Once we know a lot more about the circumstances, we can really understand the situation and why someone did something or why someone said something. And that helps us also to respond in a better way. So, think more in terms of a larger picture. Do you think child marriage is a good thing? Does anyone around you or any famous leaders in India think child marriage is a good thing? I'm guessing no, right? So let's look at the movie Tanhaji. Do you remember that there was, his own son was, part of a child marriage in this movie. But in those times in India, this was not only accepted, this was expected from everyone. So when a leader conducted it, people were not angry as they would be today. They saw it as normal. Can you imagine a political leader conducting child marriage in India today? In fact, it is illegal. By law, that person would be arrested and jailed. This brings us to a really important point about the different laws. The laws actually keep changing with the times. What was once accepted and common is now illegal. This is the case all over the world, in different countries. In India, the caste system was an important part of life, but right now it is a terrible crime. The same goes for sati, the practice of sati or child marriage. So, talking more about the law. What is the law? It is a system of rules which a particular country or community recognizes as regulating the actions of its members and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. So a law basically decides whether you are a criminal, whether you deserve to go to jail, whether you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. The laws in our country decide that. And when we look at apartheid, which was a policy in South Africa until pretty recently, it's a policy or system of segregation or discrimination on grounds of race. So apartheid was actually the law. So if you see these signs, this one, City of Durban, under section 37 of the Durban Beach bylaws, This bathing area is reserved for the sole use of members of the white race group. So by law, only white people could enter in this beach. And if we look at this sign, these for use by white persons, these public premises and the amenities thereof have been reserved for the exclusive use of white persons. So by law, no one else was allowed to use the public amenities, things that were of the land for use by everyone, but only white people could use some of those amenities. So in South Africa, discrimination, which is seen as wrong by everyone around the world, was the law. So this actually points to manipulating the law to do injustices. So laws are just a set of rules. They are created by us. We talked about in a letter to God how the postal system was a system created by us, how money is a system created by us. Similarly, the law is a system created by human beings. And it's really based on the human beings' thought process of right and wrong, which is many times wrong. And it changes with the times, and as times move forward, we realize what our mistakes are and what is actually, right, what is actually wrong, and we keep changing those laws. But apartheid was particularly terrible. Why? Because it wasn't a very long time ago. It was pretty recent. It was, part of the 1900s, and it wasn't abolished until countries all over the world were against it and saying you need to stop this now. Many countries actually boycotted South Africa. They said no, we will not have any relationship with you because your apartheid laws have still not been abolished or stopped. Now one way to appreciate a text is through learning about the historical context. Another thing is actually learning about the context through the text. So many times when we read a story, we learn many new things. We learn about the experiences of that person, of the character, or of the writer. And through that, we realize what actually it felt like to be in that situation. And that is another thing that, literature is really great for, reading is really great for, really understanding, being in the shoes of that person. And even though we have never lived through apartheid, we will never live through apartheid, hopefully. But through reading books by people who have actually lived through that time period, we can understand what it was like. So this is why it says here, put yourself in their shoes. So you can actually put yourself in people's shoes when you read a text written by them and kind of try and identify with them, empathize with them, and put yourself in their place. So autobiographies are a great way to see, hear, and feel with the person writing the text. So in the last class we discussed autobiographies and biographies, right, which are part of non-fiction texts, and how they are written from the first person point of view, from the point of view of the person writing that particular book. So we can experience what that person lived through. We gain a deeper understanding of how unjust laws or circumstances affected other human beings. It helps us to learn from the mistakes as well as triumphs humankind has made. So let's move ahead with the read aloud. We'll do the read aloud of chapter 2, Nelson Mandela. Please note or underline the difficult words. You will later be using the graphic organizer, if you remember, with the word in the meaning, the dictionary, word in the center, dictionary meaning, sentence, synonym, and antonym. And please do read along with me during the read aloud. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. Okay, so you must have read here that this is an extract from Nelson Mandela's autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. Mandela speaks about a historic occasion, the inauguration. So this is the inauguration of Nelson Mandela as president. Um, the inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheatre formed by the Union Buildings in Pretoria. Pretoria is the capital city of South Africa. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zinani. On the podium, Mr. de Klerk was first sworn in as second deputy president. Then Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people. To the assembled guests and the watching world, I said, today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. So here actually we have a metaphor, newborn liberty. So liberty is actually like a newborn baby. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. So again, a reference or a metaphor used here about a birth of a society. So freedom is born, a society of which all of humanity will be proud is born. So this is sort of like Mandela's baby or child. We who were outlaws not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. So if we see here, we who were outlaws. So because of its policy of apartheid, many countries had earlier broken off diplomatic relations with South Africa. So now South Africa is no longer an outlaw because everyone accepts that this is a truly democratic and fair government with Nelson Mandela as the president. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers roared in perfect formation over the Union buildings. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defence Force and police, their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before, they would not have saluted but arrested me. So this is a really interesting observation by Mandela. So here he talks about the generals in defense force with their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by. So these ribbons and medals were actually probably given to them for doing things that were, would now be considered illegal by, hurting people who are black for not following apartheid laws. So this is sort of ironic here. But Mandela is not really, he's just pointing to it. He's not discussing it in detail. And then he talks a bit about how he was not unmindful of the fact that these same generals and policemen who were saluting him would actually have arrested him uh, because of the apartheid laws. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. The day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems and the vision of whites singing Nkosi Sikeleli Africa and blacks singing D Stem. So it's interesting again because D Stem was the national anthem before Mandela was elected president, during the apartheid days. And so this was basically the government's national anthem. Nkosi Sikelele Yafrika was a song that was sung by the people who were resisting the government, who were fighting against apartheid laws. So when Mandela came into his presidency, when he became president, he did not reject the earlier anthem. He ensured that both anthems were part of the South African national anthem. First it was two, and then after that there was a decision made where one national anthem was created by joining both of these songs. The old anthem of the Republic. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised, they would soon know the words by heart. Okay. So when we talk about whites singing Nkosi Sikeleli Africa, they did not know the lyrics to that because that was the song by the resistors, the people who were black, who were part of the coloreds or Indians. They were the ones who sang this song, which signified resistance. And the blacks who was singing the stem. This was a song that they despised because it signified the government that was upholding the apartheid laws. And here they were each singing each other's anthems. And so Mandela here is hopeful that they would soon know the words by heart because he's hopeful that this South Africa is where both groups are accepted and it is not about one group ruling over the other. On the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. In the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War, and before my own birth, the white-skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial dominance against the dark-skinned people of their own land. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhumane societies the world has ever known. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century and my own 8th decade as a man, that system had been overturned forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all peoples, regardless of the color of their skin. That day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. So if we talk about this sentence, that day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people. So Mandela is one person and he is now the president, but it wasn't just his fight. There were thousands and thousands of black South Africans who had worked really hard, who had given up their lives, and who had fought bravely to ensure that this day would come. I felt that day, as I have on so many other days, that I was simply the sum of all those African patriots who had gone before me. So he's saying he was simply the sum. So he's saying I'm not, the only person. I'm a sum. I'm a symbol of all of those people, the thousands who had worked so hard, who had given up their lives for this goal. That long and noble line ended and now began again with me. So in a way, he's saying this long and noble line that had fought for this freedom ended with me now because the goal is achieved. However, it is beginning again with me because there are some new goals for South Africa as a country. Whether it is, bringing up all the blacks in poverty who, because of a history of apartheid and oppression, they need they need upliftment. They need support from the government. So in a way, a new era is being formed where again there is a lot of hard work to be done, but the goal that the previous patriots had before him have now been, achieved. I was pained that I was not able to thank them and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had wrought. The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was that it produced the Oliver Tambos, the Walter Sisulus, the Chief Luthulis, the Yusuf Dadus, the Bram Fishers, the Robert Sobukwes of our time. Men of such extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity that their like may never be known again. Perhaps it requires such depths of oppression to create such heights of character. Here he's done a really interesting play with words where he's saying depths of oppression, as in the oppression was so bad, so terrible, so deep and low, and that maybe caused such heights of character. Like these men had such great characters, and we could only see that height of character when there was this really deep oppression which very few people could come out of or fight against. My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil, but I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. So we will read till here today and move on to your homework. For homework, you need to read the rest of the of this chapter from page 21 till 23. You need to complete the 2 oral comprehension checks given on page 21 and 24. You need to also complete expressing your opinion, the activity given on page 27. And finally, watch a link that is given in the description box below about the civil rights movement in the USA. So apartheid was a system of discrimination that was in South Africa. Even in the US, there was a system called segregation, which the civil rights movement fought against. So seeing that link will help you connect a bit about the fight against racial segregation and discrimination. So that's all for today's class. Please do your homework and I'll see you for your next class.